Welcome back to our weekly blog for Drusilla's Dream. I really appreciate you being with me again, and I hope you enjoy this session. So how about we just begin? So this week's blog is entitled Professor's Stress and Anxiety. We welcome you. So I'm sure you're all thinking that's a pretty strange title, isn't it? Why in the world would we welcome stress or anxiety? Perhaps a better question to ask is, what is the benefit of slamming the door on them in hopes that they'll peacefully go away? Well, maybe because they're not too pleasant to be around, we may respond. They are both, of course, chaotic characters, disheveled, unpredictable, sometimes abusive, and always difficult to understand. We fear their unpleasant attributes might rub off on us and we will become lost in that breathless and palpating world. Perhaps there's a different way that we can look at these unsavory personalities. They both represent a part of us we'd rather avoid. Each of us at one time or another have experienced these emotions. They make us feel like jittery and fearful and uncertain, even immobilized. We may judge ourselves for falling victim to their toxic lure once again. And we struggle against their intense grip and berate ourselves for being weak and unable to escape their powerful hold on us. Eventually, we may even accept defeat and simply just try to avoid them. We try and kind of wait it out and hope that they'll get bored and turn their miserable attention towards someone else. We kind of cower and recoil into a shadowy corner somewhere until we hear the door close, and then we're sure they're finally gone. And then we jump to our feet and we slam the deadbolt in position and we just pray they disappeared forever. However, what do we learn from our time imprisoned by these two unwanted bedfellows? Stress and anxiety. What did we learn? Did we even take the time to ask them what they wanted or why they showed up? Or did we fall into unconsciousness in a futile attempt to just push them away? As the saying goes, whatever we resist persists. So instead of resisting our uncomfortable feelings, we could simply invite them in and ask them, what brought you to my door? We just might find that they only wanted to be accepted and recognized. They did not show up to hurt us or annihilate us. In fact, most of the time, they're not even sure why they targeted us. When we finally stop trying to avoid stress and anxiety, they really do lose their power over us. We realize that they're just feelings, nothing more, nothing less. However, we also begin to understand that they do trigger our voracious ego that thrives on negative and fearful emotions to stay alive and relevant. In the ego's attempt to control just about everything, it finds little peace or satisfaction, ever. It can also cause us to disconnect from the wisdom, comfort, and peaceful energy of our soul. So, what's the answer? How do we coexist with these two persistent intruders and not allow them to upend our world repeatedly? I know I probably sound like a broken record, but the answer, of course, lies in our awareness. Stress and anxiety may quietly slink into our life, but once there, they cannot hide, and nor do they wish to. We are fully aware that they are with us because we can feel the seat of our soul kind of teetering as they try to toss us headfirst into their chaos of fear and worry. If we succumb to their bluster, we just might tumble, and then the ego awakens. Yet, if we refuse to turn our power over to them and expand our soul's fearless energy, we will stay seated and calm on our spiritual throne. We can then summon the ego as a loving parent would an unruly or frightened child. We can ask it what it's afraid of, and it may begin to rant about anything and everything it fears has happened, is happening, or will happen. It usually starts with the big stuff like we may lose our job, or we may get sick. We may become injured in a car crash or some other catastrophe and become disabled or worse. We fret and worry about our children, even when things are going great. We lost someone that we deeply loved to physical death, and we're grieving and anxiously just want to know if they're okay. We may be inching closer to the end of our physical incarnation, and we wonder if we're worthy of the paradise that we hope awaits us. If we let the ego get it all out, it will most likely not end there, but move on to more petty and trivial complaints like the neighbor's dog is always barking and it makes me stressed, or our coworker talks too loudly all the time and I can't concentrate, and I'm afraid all the time that I'll never get my work done. It's so stressful. The deer population, this is big for me. The deer population is exploding, and we just know that they're going to eat all our newly planted vegetables or flowers. And on it goes. We are too fat, too skinny, too tall, too short, too old, too young. So once our soul allows our terrified ego to share its conscious and sometimes unconscious and unwarranted fears at times, it can then respond. Our souls can then respond gently and reassuringly and validate the ego's feelings of stress and anxiety. We can explain to our ego that it is part of us and it needs to be unified with our souls so that it can feel soothed and safe. And then we can offer our soul's wisdom. And we can ask, so what do you think is being accomplished by all of this endless worry, mostly about things that you have little control over, we ask. It's important to understand that worry is simply a prayer for what you don't want, we continue. Like all other thoughts, it has energy and the capacity to draw to you exactly what you're worrying about. Having faith and trust in the divine design for our life is a much better response to adversity, anxiety, and stress. Those qualities will most likely help you to simply let go, surrender, lift yourself up, and then see the bigger picture of our life. We can then explain that there are some things that we can take, some actions that we can take to shape the outcome. Sometimes, and at least to a certain extent. Yet, to calm the fear, anxiety, and stress, we must accept it as part of life here in the physical world, just as we would joy and happiness. If we view everything as good or bad, we will always be running from the perceived bad and pursuing the perceived good. Understanding that there are no good or bad choices or circumstances, only opportunities to grow, evolve, and awaken to a higher level of consciousness. And then we may finally be able to embrace all aspects of this unpredictable life. To do that, it's important to just stay awake, stay present, and aware of what we're feeling. And when the chaotic ego mind is losing its you-know-what, and if we do that, we can then nip in the bud another unnecessary fruitless bout with that frantic frickin' frack. My amazing husband sent me a quote this week, as he regularly does, because he knows that I love them and I love sharing them with you. So I thought this would be a great way to end this week's blog. So here we go. Once a wise man was asked, "What is the meaning of life?" And he replied, "Life itself has no meaning. Life is an opportunity to create meaning." So let us grab the ethereal canvas of our lives, grab our paintbrush and our paints, and let's begin creating the most colorful, meaningful, and magnificent masterpiece that the world has ever seen. The masterpiece of our life. So, I hope you enjoyed this week's discussion about stress and anxiety, and I know that probably none of you listening, and if you are one of those rare people who have never experienced these feelings, you're very blessed, but most of us have one time or another, and some of us, it becomes a regular intruder in our lives. But the point of the whole discussion today is non-resistance. Because again, what I said in the blog is whatever we resist persists. And so, but once we allow it into our lives, accept what we're feeling and not judge our feelings, that's all they are, just feelings, we begin to settle down. And we can then ask again, what is it that I'm feeling? Because if we resist it, sometimes we'll never really understand what's causing it. But here's what I wanted to say right now, that sometimes, and I know that I've experienced this, sometimes I've woken up in the morning and I'm anxious. And I say to my husband, I'm feeling so anxious, but I don't have any reason to feel anxious. I don't know why. It's a physical feeling in the pit of my stomach. And I want to find the answer, but I can't. So I know enough now. I didn't when I was younger, but now I know enough to just accept that it is what it is. Maybe there's a reason, maybe there's not. I think there's a reason for everything, but it is what it is. So I usually try to just take a deep breath and meditate and just allow myself that moment of feeling the anxiety and say, it's okay. It's okay to feel this way. Life here in the physical world is a source of anxiety. And so somewhere in our subconscious or superconscious mind, we may be hearing and feeling all of the mass consciousness of the world, and that's what's causing it. And how in the world are we going to figure that out? We can't, most of the time. So then it becomes just about self-love, loving ourselves and saying it's okay. It's okay what you're feeling. I'm getting a little emotional, but it really is okay to feel it. And I love you. And I love you. So I hope you enjoyed this time together. And I hope everyone has a calm and a peaceful day. And get out there in nature. That's a really good way to calm ourselves and feel the peace surrounding us all the time, every day. So have a really wonderful day, everyone. I love you all, and thank you again for being with me, and namaste.